Story 1. Imagine hearing children whisper through your locked door at 1:30 in the morning, desperately begging, "Mom, please let us in an apartment building where no children have ever lived. A few years before the basement incident, I had just gone through a painful breakup and moved into a beautiful ground floor apartment in a peaceful, upscale complex on the outskirts of Seattle, Washington. The place felt like a true fresh start. Elegant landscaping, a lovely private courtyard, friendly neighbors, and a real sense of community. For the first time in months, I finally felt safe and hopeful again. Then the strange noises began. Late at night, while getting ready for bed, I started hearing running footsteps in the internal hallway, followed by soft, childish giggling right outside my bedroom window. At first, I assumed it was local kids pulling harmless pranks. I tapped on the glass and made a loud shushing sound. The giggling stopped for a moment. Then came 3 distinct taps on the window from the outside. My blood ran cold. I yanked the curtains open immediately. The courtyard was completely empty. No running children, no fading footsteps, no hiding shadows. Just moonlight illuminating still grass and quiet trees. It was impossible for anyone to disappear that fast. This pattern continued for several nights. The giggling and tapping happened again and again. I chose to ignore it, hoping the kids would lose interest if I stopped reacting. Then one afternoon at work, I received an urgent email from the property manager asking me to come to the office as soon as possible. She locked the door behind me, her face unusually pale. The head of security sat beside me as they played security camera footage from the hallway outside my apartment. At around 2 a.m., 2 small hooded figures, roughly the size of 10 or 12-year-old children, appeared at my door. They stood unnaturally close, almost touching the door, motionless for nearly 10 full minutes. One of them reached out and tried the doorknob repeatedly. Then they simply skipped away and vanished. Security checked every single camera on the entire property. The figures appeared from nowhere and disappeared into nowhere. They never entered through the locked main entrance. They never exited through any gate. That night I stayed awake, heart pounding with fear and determination. A week later, at 1:30 a.m., the nightmare escalated. I heard the doorknob rattling violently. I crept to the door and looked through the peephole. 2 small figures stood with their heads bowed. A soft, childlike voice whispered clearly through the door, "Mom, we're home. Open the door and let us in." Another small voice joined, trembling with desperation. "Please, Mom, we're home now. Please let us in." The raw desperation in that final "please" made my knees buckle. I yelled back that their mother didn't live here anymore and that I was calling the police. They responded with eerie giggling, a sound that twisted something deep in my stomach. Then they started throwing their small bodies against the door. The knob shook wildly. After a tense minute, everything went deathly silent. When I looked again, the hallway was empty. The property manager later pulled me aside in the parking lot. She hesitated for a long time before quietly telling me that the previous tenant had been troubled. Something horrible had happened involving her children. She refused to give details for privacy reasons, but left me with a chilling warning. This wasn't a prank. Be very, very careful. How did 2 children enter a locked building without a key? How did they vanish from every camera? Why did they call me Mom? I still don't believe in ghosts, but the memory of those desperate voices whispering through my door at night still sends shivers down my spine years later. Story 2. I've always been the biggest skeptic in every circle I've ever been part of. Ghosts, spirits, demons. I dismiss them all with a laugh and a sarcastic comment. "People exaggerate for attention," I used to say confidently. That unbreakable belief was completely shattered during one seemingly ordinary weekend that still haunts my every sleepless night. My buddy Marcus and his wife had been planning their anniversary getaway for months. They lived in a sprawling modern house on the outskirts of a quiet town in rural Ontario, surrounded by dense woods that made the property feel completely isolated. Privacy was their luxury. With their 2 kids away on a school camping trip, the only soul left behind was their energetic golden retriever, Bailey. I offered to house sit. "Go enjoy your weekend," I told Marcus. "I've got Bailey covered." He stocked the fridge with steaks, craft beer, and every snack imaginable. By Friday afternoon, I was settled in, excited for a peaceful couple of days with a dog that basically worshipped me. The first night was perfect. Bailey and I sprawled on the massive sectional, watching action movies until well past midnight. Around 3:20 a.m., I jolted awake to furious, deep-throated barking echoing from downstairs. It wasn't playful. It was the sound of pure terror and aggression. My heart slammed against my ribs as I grabbed my phone flashlight and crept down. Bailey stood rigid in the kitchen, hackles raised like a porcupine, staring at the heavy door that led to the finished basement. His barking shook the walls. I called his name softly, then louder, but he ignored me completely. When I reached for the doorknob, he lost his mind, sprinting back and forth, claws scraping the tiles, eyes wild with panic. My first rational thought was intruder. Marcus had top-tier security, but nothing is foolproof. I snatched the largest chef's knife from the block, flipped on the basement lights, and yelled down the stairs with fake bravado. "Whoever's down there, you picked the wrong house." Silence. Bailey refused to follow me. He stood at the threshold growling, every hair on end. The deeper I descended, the colder it became. An unnatural, bone-deep chill that seeped through my clothes and made my breath visible. I searched everywhere, behind the leather sofas, inside closets, the guest bathroom, every corner. Nothing. No footprints, no broken windows, just that oppressive cold. I spent the rest of the night on the living room couch with Bailey curled against me, trembling. By morning, he was back to his happy self, chasing balls in the backyard under the warm sun. When I went downstairs during daylight, the temperature felt completely normal. I laughed it off as a weird one-time thing. The second night destroyed that illusion. At almost the exact same hour, Bailey erupted again. This time, his panic was worse. When I grabbed the doorknob, he didn't just bark. He whimpered and cried like an animal in pain. The moment I opened the door and started down, the smell hit me. Thick, rotting, and foul, like something had died weeks ago and been left to fester. My stomach churned. Worse still, the family photos on the basement walls were knocked over, and the bar stools lay scattered on the floor. Nothing else was touched. Heart pounding, I cleaned up quickly, desperate to escape that stench. Upstairs, Bailey continued his frantic barking for nearly half an hour before finally collapsing from exhaustion. The next morning, the smell had vanished completely. Bailey happily trotted down the stairs with me, tail wagging, as if nothing had ever happened. 2 nights of terror, and now he acted like the basement was his favorite place. When Marcus returned, I told him everything. His face drained of color. He admitted that when Bailey was a puppy, he used to have the same unexplained meltdowns at that exact door. It stopped years ago. We both tried to laugh it off, but the fear in his eyes mirrored my own growing dread. Weeks later, I still wake up sometimes expecting to hear that barking. The house is quiet now, but I know something was down there. Something that didn't want us near it. Story 3. 10 years ago, I was trapped in a soul-crushing retail job in a quiet suburb outside Chicago. Every day blurred into the next, gray, meaningless, and exhausting. Then one afternoon as I left work, I noticed a bright neon pink sticky note attached to my car door handle. "You're special. I hope you have an amazing day." It made me smile. For the first time in years, someone had noticed me. Over the next few days, more notes appeared in the same spot. They grew increasingly warm and flirtatious. I started leaving responses on my own sticky notes. It became a fun, harmless game that brought unexpected color into my monotonous life, until my day off. I woke up late that morning and walked outside. Another neon pink note waited on my car. "You look cute when you're sleeping." Pure terror flooded my body. I lived completely alone. No one had my address. No one should have known anything about my sleeping habits. I crumpled the note with shaking hands, desperately trying to convince myself it was a sick joke from a coworker who had followed me home. When I stopped responding, the tone of the notes shifted dramatically. They became aggressive and threatening. "Answer me right now. Remember, I know exactly where you live." I left one final note demanding they stop or I would call the police. The next day, my note had disappeared, and for a short while, the pink note stopped. I felt immense relief. Then, in the middle of one ordinary night, I woke up to soft shuffling sounds inside my house. Baseball bat in hand, I crept slowly down the long, dark hallway, every shadow looking like a potential attacker. My heart pounded so hard I could hear it in my ears. I scanned the living room and kitchen under dim lights. Nothing appeared out of place. I retreated to my bedroom, locked the door, and eventually fell into a restless sleep. The next morning, I walked into the kitchen and froze in absolute horror. A bright pink sticky note was stuck to the refrigerator door inside my locked house. "You can't keep me away." Every door and window remained securely locked. No broken glass, no signs of forced entry. Someone had been standing silently in my kitchen while I slept just down the hall. The police investigation led nowhere. I changed every single lock, installed security cameras, and stayed with a friend for several weeks. Months of uneasy silence followed. Then one ordinary morning, a final neon pink note appeared on my front door. "I guess you don't want to play anymore." After that, the note stopped completely, but the psychological damage remained. To this day, I wonder how close the intruder was when I stood in the hallway with the bat. Why didn't they attack when they had the perfect opportunity? Did locking my bedroom door that night save my life? I eventually moved away, got married, and tried to rebuild my life. Yet every time I see a neon pink sticky note, pure dread washes over me. Because somewhere out there, someone once entered my home at night and chose to play a terrifying game instead of ending my life.